At long last, Nintendo has finally officially announced the Switch 2. And though we haven't yet seen any official game announcements for it, the rumor mill is also churning in full force. The last several weeks and months have built up a long list of titles, both first and third party, that are rumored to be in the works for the Switch 2, and here, we're going to go through a few of them. Before you ask, no, we're not including Mario Kart 9, given the fact that that's basically already been officially confirmed. We will, however, be starting off with another rather obvious first pick. Next, 3D Mario. Super Mario, whatever the heck it's called, is very likely going to occupy the same space for the Switch 2 that Super Mario Odyssey did for the Switch. Mario Kart 9 is looking like a lock to be the big first-party game that launches alongside the console, which means it's taking up that Breath of the Wild slot, which means the next 3D Mario platformer is likely to launch a few months down the road, just as Odyssey did during the Switch's launch window. With 8 years having passed since the series' last mainline 3D release, this one looks all but guaranteed, or as close as it can be with Nintendo involved. Next, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing New Horizons is the Switch's second best-selling game of all time, so yeah, no one should be under any illusions that Nintendo isn't going to prioritize a Switch 2 entry for that series. The question, however, is how the company chooses to time its release. For instance, will it want to space out Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, with the latter perhaps carrying the latter half of the console's lifecycle as it was with the Switch? It doesn't have to pan out that way, obviously, and one way or another, there should be little to no doubts that a new Animal Crossing is multiple years into production. Luigi's Mansion 4. Having sold close to 15 million units, Luigi's Mansion 3 is basically guaranteed to get a sequel at some point during the Switch 2's lifecycle. Is it in the works right now? Well, constant speculation suggests that it is. Looking at developer Next Level Games' timeline, it does seem highly likely. The studio's last release was 2022's Mario Strikers Battle League, which means it has been working on its next project for some time now, and yes, that project very likely is the next Luigi's Mansion game. We hope so, at any rate. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Officially set for launch on the Nintendo Switch sometime this year, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is one of the industry's longest anticipated games right now. And there's been no shortage of speculation that when it does release, it'll also be available for the Switch 2. Nintendo is no stranger to cross-gen launch titles. Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild were both cross-gen, so yes, it certainly is quite possible that Metroid Prime 4 is available on both the Switch and Switch 2 at launch. Either way, even if it isn't, the Switch 2 is confirmed to be backwards compatible, so there's a good chance that many will choose to play the game on the next-gen console regardless, especially if the console has native backward compatibility enhancement capabilities. Pokémon Legends Z to A. Like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Pokémon Legends Z to A is yet another major first-party exclusive lined up for the Nintendo Switch in the same year that the console's successor is also due out. Given the timing of its release alone, again, it's no surprise that there's as much speculation that the game will be cross-gen as there is. Now, a cross-gen Pokemon game is something that we haven't ever really seen before, which means we're less inclined to go with that line of logic in this specific case. We do hope that the Switch 2 has some of those aforementioned backwards compatibility enhancement features though, because we'd sure love to play the game in the best possible version of itself. Doom: The Dark Ages. Moving away from the first-party section of this list, there's some major third-party heavy hitters that are also looking likely to come to the Switch 2. Doom: The Dark Ages is one that's highly likely. Both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal released for the Switch, and Doom: The Dark Ages is already confirmed to be a fully multi-platform game, with a day-and-date PS5 release happening. It wouldn't surprise us, in fact, if a Switch 2 version of the game ended up being officially confirmed later this month at the Xbox Developer Direct Showcase. Halo: The Master Chief Collection. Apparently Doom isn't the only Microsoft shooter that's coming to the Switch 2. Prominent leaker Nate the Hate has claimed that Halo: The Master Chief Collection is also in development for Nintendo's next-gen console. Microsoft has, of course, aggressively expanded its third-party presence over the last year, and clearly, the company has no plans of slowing that train down. A major Halo release on the Switch 2 would certainly make a splash. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. As per the aforementioned Nate the Hate, alongside Halo, Microsoft also has a Nintendo Switch 2 version of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 in development. The game, which launched last November, is one of the most technically demanding games out there right now, so talk of a working version for the Switch 2 suggests some exciting things about that console's specs. Of course, if the game does indeed come to the next-gen Switch, we would still fully expect it to be significantly pared down compared to, say, the Xbox Series X version. But with leaks suggesting that the Switch 2 is roughly in the same ballpark as the Xbox Series S in terms of its hardware capabilities, perhaps a Flight Sim 2024 port isn't completely outside the realm of possibility. HiFi Rush. This is technically no longer a Microsoft joint, but thankfully HiFi Rush and Tango Gameworks are still alive and kicking, with the IP and the studio having been bought out by Krafton some months after Xbox shut them down. Prior to Tango's closure, leaks had suggested that the game would also come to the Switch 2, having previously also been released for PS5 as part of Microsoft's third-party push. Whether Krafton still intends to go ahead with that alleged plan, well, that remains to be seen. Assassin's Creed Shadows and Mirage. As per Nate the Hate, we will have 2023's Assassin's Creed Mirage ready as a launch window game for the Switch 2, while the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows is also allegedly in development for the console. Far Cry 7. Though Shadows is not going to be ready for the Switch 2 at launch, allegedly, another major upcoming release will be in the form of Far Cry 7. The next Far Cry has not yet been officially announced, of course, but several credible leaks have insisted that the game is pretty far along in development and targeting a 2026 release. Meanwhile, in 2023, Felipe Lima, editor-in-chief of Brazilian outlet Universo Nintendo and a known Nintendo leaker, also claimed that Far Cry 7 would get a day and date release on the Switch 2. Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter World may have skipped the Switch, but the blockbuster franchise still enjoyed great success on the Nintendo platform thanks in large part to Monster Hunter Rise. That we will have more Monster Hunter ready for the Switch 2 one way or another is beyond any doubt, and seemingly the company won't have to develop an entirely new game this time. Back in 2023, the aforementioned Felipe Lima claimed that the next Monster Hunter, which would go on to be unveiled as Monster Hunter Wilds, would come to the Switch 2 as well. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. Square Enix has clearly learned its lesson regarding exclusivity with the multiple major recent stumbles, and as part of its bid to turn into a fully multi-platform company, it will also be bringing Final Fantasy VII Remake and its sequel to non-PlayStation consoles. That's as per Nate the Hate, who has claimed that Remake will launch for the Switch 2 and Xbox Series X and S sometime this year, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth following sometime in 2026. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. The Final Fantasy remakes aren't the only remakes heading to the Switch 2, apparently. As per Nate the Hate, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater also has a Switch 2 version in the works. Metal Gear does have a history of appearing on Nintendo platforms, though not always, and if the leaks are to be believed, the Switch 2 is certainly going to be powerful enough to be able to run the upcoming remake, or at least a tweaked version of it. Hopefully it won't be too long before we get that official confirmation. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Jedi Survivor may have had plenty of trouble running on every platform it launched for back in 2023, but by now, it is available even on last-gen consoles, which means the Switch 2 should be able to handle the game, right? Well, that's what the rumor mill suggests anyways, with games industry writer Daniel Camillo having claimed recently that the EA title was one of several third-party titles headed to the next Nintendo console. EA's support for the Switch was lackluster at best, so we sure hope that Jedi Survivor does indeed come to the Switch 2 and marks the beginning of a much stronger Nintendo support from its publisher.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at Gaming Vault, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.